A warm welcome to all the viewers, and as usual, we have one more reading comprehension passage. And this passage is from a different stream, from a different subject, and this talks about Greek mythology, Greek religion. And we have taken earlier passages as well, and in those passages, we had different topics. So we are taking different issues because you have to understand that in every RC you would be having a different subject matter, and that could range from science, politics, economics, psychology, anything from anywhere, right? So you should get used to reading all kinds of content. And today we have for you a passage based on Greek mythology, Greek religion, and I will read the passage for you. We will do the summarizing and we will find the central idea. We will see what are the important things that you have to focus on, what things can be ignored. And while reading, we will keep in mind these four things. The first is that we have to ignore the intricate details of the passage. The second thing is map the key nouns. The third thing is that we will get the gist of every paragraph. And the last thing is that we will not focus much on what we don't understand, because what we don't understand, we don't understand. You can't hammer things in your mind, right, and confuse yourself. So let's go and read the passage keeping these four things in mind. At the end of the passage, I have taken a question which we would solve by using the central idea and the broader aspect of the passage. So after reading the passage, when we look at the question, we will get to know how the reading has been effective. This is very important. Most of you do all the kinds of reading, but none of you are actually testing yourself whether your reading really is of the right quality or not. So reading is one thing, and assessing the quality of that reading is a different thing. That is only possible if you take questions. In this passage, we are taking only one question. In every passage, I will take only one question, because if you want to go for the premium stuff, then you can go for the paid course of Bodhi Prep. But this is also enough. Okay? So let's go and read the passage. It says, the Greeks were traditionally a religious people, yet there has always been a tendency at the same time to treat the gods with a certain familiar flippancy. This is already very apparent in the Iliad and the Homeric hymns. Now, when you read the first sentence, it talks about the Greeks, and they were religious people, but they treated their gods with a certain familiar flippancy. Now, many of you might not be knowing the meaning of flippancy, but it is contrasting with the word religious people. They were religious people, but they treated their gods with flippancy. That means it must have something to do with opposite of what is given in the first sentence. And further it says the rationalist movements of the later 5th century had subjected the reputation of the divine personages to further battering. That means basically battering and flippancy are common ideas, and it must refer to making fun of the gods. The inquisitive spirit of Euripides, when not interpreting the gods as profound psychological forces, was capable of presenting them as what? Shady seducers or discredited figures of fun. So the inquisitive spirit of Euripides presented the gods as shady seducers or discredited figures of fun. So you should not bother much about these sentences. This is what I told you earlier, that you should never think about all those things that are difficult to understand, right? So if you look here, it says that I will just change the color here. Okay, so right, we have the right color now. So it says here the Euripides presented the gods as discredited figures of fun. That's it, So shorten your sentences. I will take a separate session in which I will teach you how to shorten the sentences. So unnecessarily you are reading lots of stuff that are not important. Right? At the same time, Socrates was questioning the whole traditional fabric so indefatigably that his prosecutors who secured his death sentence were hardly wrong to accuse him. So Socrates was accused of what? Not believing in the gods. So what do we get from this paragraph? It's a simple paragraph. It talks about Greek people, particularly the eminent people, and their attitude towards Greek religion, correct? Greek gods or Greek religion. So in one pocket, you can put the word Greek gods and Greek religion. In the other, you have the eminent personalities like Euripides and philosophers and in the books, and they mocked the gods. So what do we get from the first paragraph? That the Greeks were religious people, but they did not refrain from making fun of the gods, right? That's it. This is what we call as summary. The Greeks were religious people, but they did not refrain from making fun of the gods or discrediting them, or you know, uh, lots of negativities against the gods, right? Then you have the next paragraph. So I will go to the second paragraph here. It says, then the early Hellenistic refers to Greece. Okay, so the early Hellenistic age that followed, that means followed what, the earlier people. So you have Socrates, you have Euripides, and then the next age comes, right? So the early Hellenistic age that followed produced numerous slighting references to the Olympian powers. What is slighting reference? You know, you might not know the meaning of this word, but then because this is going in conjunction with the earlier paragraph, this also must refer to what, making fun of people. Many people had come to regard them as merely symbolic, so there is no respect. And even the Stoics, for all their belief in divine providence, reinterpreted and accommodated many individual deities as merely allegorical explanations of natural phenomena. So again, you are considering the gods as mere symbols, and they are simply explaining natural phenomena. So there is nothing extraordinary about the gods. Like Hellenistic sculptors who began to represent some of these gods in much less idealistic forms than those their predecessors had favored. The poet Callimachus and Theocritus showed that they were living in an age when the old gods were no longer a matter of belief. So again, the same thing has happened. The information of the earlier paragraph has been repeated in the next paragraph, only the age has become different. In the earlier paragraph, you have Socrates, you have Iliad, you have Homer, you have one more guy, Euripides. In this paragraph, you have some other people, but their attitude towards the god is the same. Let's go to the next paragraph, right? And further it says, other writers were even more specific. Thus, the idea of Euhemeres, that the gods Uranus, Cronus, and Zeus had once been great human kings upon the earth, may have been a flattering gesture in favor of worshipping living monarchs. So these people say that the gods were basically a flattering gesture for whom? In favor of the great monarchs. But it is also, in another sense, little more than a rationalization of atheism. And his younger contemporary Strato of Lampsacus declared, now what he declared is important. He did not need help of the gods. So again, you have that negative attitude. So people understand what you are able to pick is more important than what you don't understand. The word Cronus, the word Zeus, it's all right. Flattering gesture is all right, but it is becoming clear that even Lampsacus declared that he did not need the help of the gods. Meanwhile, an Athenian's hymn to Demetrius had asserted that, now this is again important, the gods of the city were at least indifferent, they were not good. And both Menander and Epicurus found this latter conclusion an obviously correct one. And then you have, since the traditional gods seemed able to do nothing to ease people's daily encounters with the vicissitudes of Hellenistic life. St. Paul, after such ideas had been going around for 3 or 4 centuries, understandably saw pagan Hellenism as a world without hope and without God. So St. Paul, who was born after 3 to 4 centuries of all these things, believed that the Greek world or the Hellenistic world was without God because of the people's attitude towards God, right? So even in the third paragraph, we have the same thing. That is, the Greek people's attitude towards God was basically that of indifference, mockery, all those things. Towards the end, we have all the same, his impression was misleading. Now, this is a very, very important sentence. Now, the author has come and said, boss, all the same, his impression was misleading. Whose impression? St. Paul's impression. Author says pagan religion was not already dying or dead when Christianity overtook it. It had remained very lively indeed. So here you have what we call as a U-turn taken by the author. The author in the first, second and third paragraph talks about the Greek people's attitude towards religion. He says that their attitude is negative. They mocked the gods. They thought that the gods were, not living figures. They were symbolic and they were indifferent and so on and so forth. St. Paul came to the conclusion that God was dead in the Greek world. The author comes and says, boss, no, it had remained very lively. But it had deviated and continued to deviate through the Hellenistic age. So it was lively, but it had deviated what? It had deviated from the traditional mainstream classical Olympian cults. So I don't know, but it means that they had deviated from the earlier religion cults. They continued to receive impressive ceremonial worship, but a person of this epoch no longer pinned his or her faith on those gods, but on a number of divine saviors. So those gods were replaced in favor of divine saviors. These saviors were relied on passionately for two reasons, or for two gifts, of which their various cults held hope. So, what are those two gifts? The conferment of strength and holiness to endure our present life, and the gift of immortality and happiness after death. And so, religion was not moribund. Moribund means dead, right? So religion was not dead, but turned out to be one of the most vital elements in the Hellenistic world. So this paragraph, lots of things you have read. What do you get in summary? In summary, you get to know that St. Paul thought that the Greek religion was dead. But the author says, no, it was vital. It was full of vitality. The only thing that changed was that they moved away from the classical Olympian gods to the gods who were divine saviors. And why they were divine saviors? Because they conferred strength, and secondly, because they conferred the gift of immortality and happiness after death. So the author says that the religion was not dead. In fact, it was very much vital. So on and so forth, So the passage I have read, so many new terms, so many different terms and strange language. Why? Because it is talking about Greek mythology, but I don't care about the names of the gods. I don't care about the names of the philosophers. What I know and what I understand is that the attitude of the early Greeks towards their gods was very much negative, and lots of examples have come in the first, second and third paragraph. Towards the end, the author says that it was misleading because the religion was full of vitality. The only thing that had changed was that the classical Olympian cults were replaced by some savior gods, and they were savior gods because of two reasons, X and Y. That's it. Now we have got the central idea. So what exactly do you have here? And look at the way we have read. Didn't we ignore the intricate details? After reading the passage, do I remember the names of all those gods and all those philosophers? No, I don't remember anything. What I know is that all those people's attitude towards the god was that of mockery, indifference, and disrespect. What I have done, have I mapped the key nouns? Yes, I have mapped the key nouns. The key nouns are the Greek gods. Within those gods, you might have 100 gods, but do I care about those? No. What is important is the Greek gods, the Greek people, particularly the top-notch intellectual or philosophers, their attitude towards the Greek god was not up to the mark, or rather that of indifference. Towards the end, the author says that the religion, the Greek religion was full of vitality, it was not dead, and the gods were replaced by a new set of gods who were divine saviors. Gist of the paragraph, we have been repeating it time and again, so we have got the gist of the paragraph as well. And then you have leave that part which you find difficult. None of the things which I found difficult, I have focused on the important thing. And what do you think is the important thing in a sentence? Whenever you read something, the conclusion is more important than than how you arrive at the conclusion. A classic example is this sentence. I was reading the sentence. Many of you would be confused with this sentence. This is not a confusing sentence. It says the inquisitive spirit of Euripides. That means basically Euripides was inquisitive, and he was interpreting the gods, and how he interpreted them as psychological forces who were basically shaded seducers or discredited figures of fun. So Euripides' attitude towards God was these three. That's it. So when you are reading something, you have to understand that what exactly is the most important element, and you just pull it out and discard the rest. Now we will take a question. The question says, the passage as a whole suggests that in order for a religion to retain its vitality, it must. So if a religion wants to retain its vitality, it must do what? Abandon the search for miraculous gifts, respond in some way to people's needs, answer the challenges set forth by rationalists, or be attracted to poets and artists. In fact, if religion has to retain its vitality, it must not abandon. Because towards the end, the author says that the Greek religion was having the vitality because it was giving miraculous gifts, not because it was abandoning miraculous gifts. So the divine saviors were worshipped, right? Why they were worshipped? Because they had given the miraculous gift of immortality. So you can't say abandoning the miraculous gift. Giving the miraculous gift or conferring the gift would make the answer choice, not abandoning. So A goes out. Respond in some way to people's needs. Yes, What is people's need? People look for happiness. People look for long life. So if the divine saviors will confer these things on people, then people would worship the divine saviors. So can I say that if the divine saviors responded to people's need in some way or the other, they were worshipped? It could be any kind of need, not necessarily hunger and thirst. It could be immortality, it could be love, it could be happiness. So if this is true, then B is true. So B can be one of the probable choices. Answer the challenges set forth by rationalists. See, the rationalists were discussed in the earlier paragraph, but the author has not said anywhere that because the rationalists' questions were answered, the religion got back its vitality. The rationalists made mockery, and that was their attitude. That's it. Whether their challenges were answered by someone or not answered by someone is not there in the passage. So C goes out. Poets and artists, again, we have discussed the rationalists, the Greek rationalists, but we haven't discussed the poets and the artists. In fact, the poet and the artists or the rationalists have not they have not found religion very attractive. But in spite of that, towards the end, the author says that religion was vital or had retained its vitality. Why? Not because it was attractive to these people, but because it was answering people's needs in some way or the other. So B is the right answer. And where do you get the right answer? Towards the end of the paragraph. Because at the start of the paragraph, the author says that people question religion. But towards the end, he says no, religion retained its vitality. So the answer is most likely to be found in that part of the passage, that is towards the end and not at the start. Why? Because at the start the religion is being questioned or mocked, and towards the end religion is being said as being vital and lively. So you have to go to that part and find the answer. B is indeed the right answer. So I hope you liked this passage, and if you have liked, subscribe to our channel. We have a paid course as well. You can take a look at the course, and if you think that VRC is a trouble area, definitely you can come to Bodhi Prep. Thanks a lot.